It took a fourth quarter rally, but the Wildcats tamed the Mustangs to remain perfect on the season.
And now it's off to a date with Incarnate Word tonight in the Alamo City. Remember the Chris Thomsen Show right now. Welcome to Week 7 of the Chris Thomsen Show. Grant Boone along with Senior Broadcast Major Brandon Tripp and the head football coach of the ACU Wildcats, Chris Thomsen. ACU 31-28 over Midwestern State at homecoming, and the Wildcats now 6-0, staying number 5 in the nation. Coach, you run through that 2-week gauntlet of top 10 previously unbeaten teams on the road at Kingsville, at home against Midwestern State, each victory by just one score. What'd you learn about your team from these last couple of weeks?
Well, down in Kingsville, we really didn't play well in the fourth quarter, didn't finish the game that well, and almost gave up a 31-10 lead. So coming back against Midwestern in the fourth quarter, those guys went up on us a couple of times, and we kept battling back. And those last two defensive series, I felt like our guys really stepped up and got stops against a great quarterback. And then felt like the offense really ran the ball well and was able to get some scores. So really, I think they learned from the Kingsville game, you got to finish a game, and they were pressed, and they did a really good job and finished well in the fourth quarter. I think that's a mark of a really good team.
Coach Thomsen, you get Incarnate Word this week for the first time ever. They're a 2-4 squad, but they're a very good 2-4 squad. Took Midwestern to overtime. What does it tell you about this team that just in their second year of the football program that they're playing teams this well already?
Well, Coach Santiago's got a lot of experience. He was a head coach at Stephen F. Austin and has coached at some really good places and has hired a staff of a lot of experienced guys. And so it doesn't surprise me that they've managed to get the program where it is this quickly. And it won't surprise me to see them really become a power in the near future because of their location and because of his ability to coach.
Well, we'll talk about the big game against Incarnate Word tonight. But first, when we come back, we'll see highlights of that thrilling 31-28 victory over Midwestern State and get Coach Thompson's analysis. This is the Chris Thomsen Show. Back on the Chris Thomsen Show, ACU a big 31-28 victory at homecoming over Midwestern State. With the highlights, here's Brandon Tripp.
The ACU Wildcats were back at home last weekend for another top 10 showdown. This time it was the number 8 Midwestern Mustangs rolling into Shotwell on homecoming weekend. On the Wildcats' first drive, it was Mitchell Gale showing the fans that Zach Eskridge isn't the only one with some legs. The drive would end in a punt, though, but good run by Mitchell Gale here on third down. Already up 7-3 on the Mustangs, and Mitchell Gale finds Cantu Harkless on the screen pass. Daryl Cantu Harkless takes it 24 yards to set up the Wildcats 1st and 10 at the Midwestern State 31-yard line. And here it is. Later in the drive, Mitchell Gale finds his favorite target, Edmund Clyde Gates, with the adjustment for the touchdown. Wildcats up 14-0. Ensuing Mustang drive, Midwestern already deep into ACU territory, and Eskridge finds Desmond Ratliff over the middle for the 12-yard gain that would set up a field goal by Jose Martinez. As time expired in the first half, Wildcats lead heading into the break, up 14-6. Out of the break, it was all Midwestern, who went no huddle for most of the third quarter and rode Lester Bush on their first drive. Bush punches it in for the score, and the Stangs would tie the game with a 2-point conversion. Again, Lester Bush. Clyde Gates was at it again on the next drive. Another adjustment on the ball, thrown a bit behind him. That would set ACU up for a Morgan Lineberry field goal. Okay, Midwestern State sticking with the no-huddle offense, and Zach Eskridge finds Jared Freeman over the middle. Just one play later, the Mustangs score, Kendrick Jackson punching it in from a few yards out. The Wildcats are in trouble as Midwestern pulls its first lead of the game, 21-17 Mustangs. So to the fourth quarter we go. Wildcats down, facing a 3rd and short, and it's Daryl Cantu Harkless. He does it again for the second time this season, busts a 3rd and short for a huge touchdown. Wildcats back up 24-21. Cantu Harkless rushed for 117 and a touchdown, 69 of them coming on that play. After another Midwestern touchdown, it's Daryl Richardson's turn. Richardson carried the ball 4 straight plays before Mitchell Gale found him in the end zone to put the Wildcats back up 31-28. One last chance for Midwestern. Eskridge finds Kevin Swanson, who tries to extend the ball out of bounds, but Bryson Lewis knocks it out of his hands, and Kevin Washington recovers the fumble, his second of the game. ACU in a thriller holds off Midwestern State on homecoming by a final of 31-28.
Coach, the final 31-28. This was a game that some Midwestern people were saying was the biggest regular season game in Mustang program history, the first time they had ever been a part of a top 10 matchup. They were number 8 in the nation going into the game last week. Did it feel big to you going in? Did your players sense that this was bigger than your average game?
I think so, just because of the homecoming crowd and, you know, playing Midwestern, I mean, that's just kind of old hat. We've played them, I think, 3 times in the last 8 or 9 games that we played. So playing those guys, we're getting accustomed to that. But, you know, the homecoming crowd is always special, and it had a big game feel to it.
Scoreless first quarter as both teams, I think, tried to feel each other out. Although it seemed like the bounces were going your team's way. Very first kickoff, their return man stepped across the goal line, then had to bring it out. You pin him back on his own 12. And then you get a strip from Eric Edwards on their receiver Maul and recover it. It just seemed like early on you weren't ahead of them on the score, but it felt like you guys had the upper hand. Did it feel like that to you?
Yeah, it felt that way all the way through the first half, just like we had the momentum for the most part and obviously went into the half with a lead. And so felt good. I mean, I felt good coming out of the half that we were in control of the game.
Well, you took the lead 7-0 on Kendrick Johnson's first offensive touchdown. He did have a punt return earlier in the season. A 16-yard touchdown grab in the back of the end zone, and that was after he got a bit of a reprieve because he fumbled on that drive. And Gardner, their safety, was the only man around it, and he just couldn't get the handle on it, fumbled it out of bounds. You guys actually wound up with the first down on that play. Tell me what Kendrick Johnson has meant to your team in terms of, we know what kind of explosive special teams player he's been, but he's way more than that now, isn't he?
He really is. You know, with Gates being such a threat on the outside part of the field, you've got to have somebody on the inside to take some of the heat off Gates. And, you know, you see how many crossing routes he catches and just stuff that's underneath that he can turn into big plays. A lot of stuff at Kingsville like that. And the touchdown was really a vertical route, which we don't do a lot with him, but he made a great head fake move on the safety that froze him and really made a great catch in the middle of the field. It was a great throw by Mitchell. I mean, that was a really well-executed play, great protection. And Kendrick's meant a lot. I mean, he's taken a lot of pressure off Gates in the passing game.
Well, that completed a 94-yard touchdown drive. And, you know, it was still early in the game, but anytime you go that long, it has to be a bit demoralizing, doesn't it, for the other team?
Well, not only the points, but the field position swing. They kick it down there, and they got you on the 6, and they're expecting 3 and out, get the ball back in great field position. You just methodically take it down. That takes a lot out of them. Well,
the only really offensive success that Midwestern had in their first scoring drive, which resulted in a field goal, was after a fumbled snap. Zach Eskridge picked up a fumbled snap. He raises up, and of course he's 6'4", 215, 220, and throws a strike downfield right down the middle of the field. Is there a tougher quarterback to defend in the Lone Star Conference than Eskridge?
Probably not, just because he's a dual threat guy. And what happened on that particular play is LB Suggs saw the bad snap and felt like Eskridge was about to scramble, so he takes a couple of steps forward for the run, and then Eskridge pulls up and just hits an off-balance throw down the middle of the field, an incredible play.
All right, you mentioned LB Suggs. That may have been one of his few stumbles on the day. He had 11 tackles to lead your team, filling in for Richard Havens, who was out with a neck injury. LB Suggs is a guy that you have some flexibility with because of his athletic ability. What have you seen from LB moving to a new position this year?
Well, he was an outside linebacker for us last year. He was a middle linebacker in high school at Cedar Hill on a state championship 5A team, believe it or not, as small as he is. But he was just a playmaker sideline to sideline, and we moved him back to safety because we needed help there in the spring. And he's a really smart guy, and he's learned it pretty quick. But he's been a great special teams player for us here. And Saturday played all 4 special teams and every snap on defense, which is incredible. Did it just an Iron Man type performance by LB.
Great performance by LB Suggs on a couple of different units. You take a 14-3 lead on one of the best catches we've seen in a long time from Edmund Gates, who moves into a tie for 6th place all time in touchdown receptions in ACU history. Made a great adjustment on the ball and made Mitch Gale look really good with that throw.
He did. One of the most impressive things about Gates is just his body control. I mean, I've seen the guy do a full gainer off the ground, and it's not many people can do that. And he showed that on that catch, being able to adjust on a ball thrown behind him. So he's making a lot of plays.
14-6, you had the lead at halftime. They go hurry up in the 3rd quarter, and they really seemed to give you some problems, especially when they handed it off to Big Lester Bush, their tailback.
They did. They kind of got us on our heels a little bit with the, coming out in the second half with the 2-minute approach, and I thought they got some points off that and gained some momentum off that. I thought our defensive coaches did a good job of helping our players adjust to that as the second half moved along.
Last year at homecoming, you led 21-18 over West Texas A&M. You lost 32-21. This year, you go into the 4th quarter trailing 21-17, and you pound the rock. 15 of 19 offensive plays in the 4th quarter were rushes by your team, including 8 of 12 on that decisive go-ahead touchdown drive. Later in the season, at some point, you're going to need to be able to run the ball. How much confidence did your team get from that?
Well, I think a lot. Our offensive line just stepped up and did a great job, and I think after the Kingsville game, which we didn't run the ball well in the second half, I think that gives us a boost that we know we can do that when we need to.
Just finally here, you've gushed about Zach Eskridge and what kind of quarterback he is. Your sophomore quarterback went yard for yard with him. Each went for 263 passing yards. Gale went 27 of 39 for a slightly better completion percentage. He also had 3 TDs to Eskridge's 1. When you look at the film and you saw it, did it look like Gale absolutely held his own as he appeared to statistically?
He held his own, and especially in the statistical category. I think they got to him with the blitz a little bit, some things that he wasn't. I mean, he had seen in practice, but I don't think the speed of it was something he was necessarily ready for, and some things he learned from those situations. And a few of his throws were a little bit behind people, and but I think his progression ultimately through a big game like that in front of a big home crowd, I think you can say he made a step there, and that'll give him some confidence.
Yeah, 2 big games in a row that Mitch has now won at the quarterback spot. 31-28 the final, great win. When we come back, we'll have more on the Chris Thomsen Show. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Chris Thomsen Show. Every team has them, unsung heroes, some on the field, some off the field. This week, Kevin Washington takes a look at the people who keep ACU players looking good, the equipment managers.
An equipment manager does pretty much everything else that all the other coaches don't want to do. On a day-to-day basis, I do probably 140 guys loads of laundry. So it turns out to about 3 loads, takes me about 4 hours. Get all the laundry set up, get them ready for practice. Before practice, I fix any kind of equipment, shoulder pads, helmets, anything they need. I fix all that up and try to get them ready for practice. And during practice, I'm working on helmets and trying to coach a position too a little bit. So do a lot of stuff.
What kind of stuff do you have to make sure that we travel for with the game and stuff? Like, what do you have to do for game preparation type stuff?
Before I get on the bus to leave, I have to make sure I have packed all of the equipment for 5 to 10 extra men, because everybody's always forgetting something. Somebody forgets a belt or forgets socks. So I've got to make sure and take as much of the equipment room with me to away games as possible. So it's really nice when we have home games because it's a lot less work on my part.
That was Coach Bradley Bryant. He helps us with our equipment manager. He also coaches out there, helps with the scout teams, make sure guys are getting in line and doing the right thing. There's a lot of things he does that you guys don't see. Earlier in camp, he gave out a few awards for the guys who are always asking for stuff and trying to get new chin straps, new socks, new towels. He does a lot of stuff from us, so we really appreciate him. And we couldn't do half the stuff we do without him because a lot of guys forget helmets, and we wouldn't even have jerseys without him. So thanks again, Coach Bryant. That's the equipment side of how we get out there and do what we do and what we do it with. This is Washington Post, and we'll see you guys later.
Thanks, Kevin. And now let's go on up to the JMC Network newsroom for a look at what is going on around the rest of the ACU sports landscape.
Hey sports fans, and welcome to the JMC Network Sportscast. I'm Austin Gwynn.
And I'm Kristen Goodspeed, here for another weekly look inside ACU sports.
Well, the volleyball team stayed perfect at home this season with wins against Angelo State, Central Oklahoma, and Southwestern Oklahoma State. The 3 wins also boosted their conference record to 6-0. Although the Wildcats held at number 21 in the nation, they remain the only Lone Star Conference team in the top 25. In the homecoming game Saturday, the Wildcats got off to a quick start against Southwestern, winning their first 2 games. For Game 3, head coach Kellen Mock decided to change it up a bit and put some freshmen in to give them some game experience. The move almost paid off as the freshmen lost Game 3 by only 2 points. The veterans were all excited that some of the younger players got playing time and almost pulled out the win. The starters came back in for Game 4 and easily handled the Bulldogs for a 3-1 victory.
The men's cross-country team recorded its second team win of the season in the Niamadu Classic. Romain Rubicki was runner-up on the 8K course with a time of 25 minutes 10 seconds, while Will Pike and Josh Taylor finished in the top 5. The rest of the Wildcat men placed in the top 10, securing their first-place team title. The women had runners finish first, second, and third at the Wildcats' only home meet of the season. Anais Belladont covered the 6K course in 21 minutes 51 seconds to take home her first title of the season for ACU. Chloe Sassette finished 30 seconds behind Belladont for second, and Elise Goldsmith was just behind her in third. This Saturday, the women will compete at the Midwestern State Carnival in Wichita Falls, and both men and women will run November 6th in Abilene at the Lone Star Conference Championship.
On the pitch this weekend, a couple of Wildcats got their names in the ACU record book. Andrea Carpenter and Ashley Holton broke the single-season scoring record while helping ACU to wins over West Texas and Eastern New Mexico. With 2 goals over West Texas, Holton pushed her season total to 10, breaking Courtney Wilson's old record of 9. Not to be outdone, Carpenter scored a hat trick against Eastern to push her season total to 12. The win against rival West Texas is the Wildcats' first against the Buffs in the soccer program's young history.
For the JMC Network, I'm Kristen Goodspeed.
And I'm Austin Gwynn. May the sports be with you.
Everybody loves to see the Wildcats score, and none more than the ACU flag guys. Here's Ryan Cantrell with more in this week's On the Grid.
Main reason why I really chose I wanted to do flag running is because it's for being a small guy like me, if I played football, I'd probably die. And just getting to run flags, it's something I can do that's unique for me to be. I can still be part of the football game and just have my own thing going on with a few other guys. So I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I got into it by just by a friend. Needed a couple people to run flags, and he asked me if I wanted to do it, and I said yeah, it looked like fun, and so I got out there that first game, and I was hooked as soon as we started. I enjoy being out there in front of the crowd, not just as an attention grabber, but just to get the crowd pumped up, because they'll get pumped up by big plays and stuff like that. The cheerleaders will pump them up, but then it's a really cool thing to get out there as the flags, because they go nuts whenever the flags go across, or they see something cool with that, and it's just really fun to watch.
When we're carrying the flags, we show a lot of enthusiasm, because it's ACU, come on. Sometimes we'll have maybe one person not carrying the flags and maybe stand in front of us and do a dance, do a chant, do whatever he feels. We'll do formations to where the big white flag is in the middle and the ACU is kind of swarming around them, and the crowd really loves that. Just whatever crazy and fun thing that we want to do just to get the crowd going.
When we come back on the Chris Thomsen Show, we'll take a look at the LSC South standings, and we'll preview a showdown in San Antone against Incarnate Word. Stay with us.
Take a look at the Lone Star Conference South Division standings, and there's ACU at 3-0. West Texas A&M playing ACU on November 6th at 2-0. WT with a huge game tonight. In fact, it's opposite the ACU Incarnate Word game. It's against Texas A&M Kingsville in South Texas. 7 o'clock kickoff there. Angelo is on the road at Midwestern as the Mustangs try to bounce back from the narrow loss to ACU last week. Coach, West Texas and Kingsville should be a dandy, and Kingsville, having already lost Fred Winborn, their talented tailback, will now be the rest of the year without DeLaShawn Dean, their outstanding wide receiver. Transferred from Arizona, blew out his ACL last week. This is a guy, when we saw him lined up down in South Texas, he looks like an NFL kind of receiver, 6'4", 210 or 250.
Yeah, every scout that's come through ACU, I've told them all that really, they always ask you, who do you think in your conference as a player? And Dean's one of the first guys I talk about. He's a tall guy, he's smooth, and hopefully he'll be able to bounce back from that ACL.
Well, let's talk about Incarnate Word, your opponent this week, coming off its second win of the season. And as we saw in the South Division standings, no wins in the division yet. This would be a signature victory for Incarnate Word if they can knock off your team. Second season of existence, 2-4 their overall record. That's after a 5-5 record in their first season. What have you seen from Mike Santiago's crew down there in San Antonio?
Well, the biggest thing that impresses you is that game against Midwestern. We had that tape. We watched it the week before we played Midwestern, and just seeing them compete with those guys and take them all the way to overtime. We know what a great program Midwestern is. It really catches your attention. They do a good job running the ball. Rios is a really good running back. I think they ran it 51 times in that Midwestern game. So, you know, they're number one in the league in time of possession, which, you know, if they can hold the ball and get their run game established and shorten the game, they can play with anybody, and that's what we can't allow them to do.
Coach, you just mentioned it, 51 times rushing against Midwestern State. How do you prepare your defense to stop an offense like that? You know they're going to run it, but they obviously think that they can do it if they're going to run 51 times a game. Well,
you just adjust your coverages a little bit and get down in some more 8-man front than what we've normally been in, and really make more of an effort with the number of people that you put around the ball, being an 8-man front a little bit more and try to stop them. That does make you more vulnerable to the pass. Obviously, you don't have as much committed to the passing game, and so, you know, that's the trick, is to stop the run and not give up some big plays in the passing game, and I think our defense is ready to do that.
It'll be a bit of a change as you come off Midwestern State, which has a great mix of pass and run. Next week, you've got Eastern New Mexico, which you know is going to chuck it 70 times. Angelo is primarily a throwing team. You know West Texas A&M is a throwing team, so a good challenge for run defense. Here's another statistic that Incarnate Word leads in the Lone Star Conference, which impresses me. They're number one in fewest penalties. In fact, they're number 6 in all of Division II. What does that tell you about a coaching staff and how it prepares its team?
Well, it just, you know, they're making sure that their guys understand how foolish penalties will get you beat, and obviously their kids are hearing that message and playing good, clean football and playing sound, and fundamentally not a lot of holding, not a lot of on the edge of block type stuff, and so that's another reason they're where they are, you know, and we got to go in there and play the same way.
I see 27 total penalties in 6 games. That's all they've committed so far. Last thing, Coach, they really seem to be, talking about Incarnate Word as a university, something of a kindred spirit with ACU. First year in the Lone Star Conference. This is a team that our other teams around ACU have played in years past, formerly a member of the Heartland Conference. What do you think that Incarnate Word in general adds to the Lone Star Conference?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just the visibility of being in a great city like San Antonio. I mean, just this weekend getting to go down to San Antonio where we have a huge alumni base, that's a little different than going to a place like Tahlequah or Ada where there's not a lot of people from ACU, or
not a lot of people, period,
you know, and so I think it makes it an interesting deal for our alumni relations people and to, you know, our alumni to get to come to a game almost like playing in Dallas-Fort Worth, and I think they add a lot, just being in a big city and bringing just a different approach to the Lone Star Conference.
Well, that's a great segue for me to be able to tell everyone watching, you actually still have time. The kickoff is not for another, 7.5 hours. There's a huge pregame tailgate party at Benson Stadium in the parking lot. We've already had well over 300 people RSVP for this pregame tailgate party right there on the campus. Benson Field, Benson Stadium, named after Tom Benson and his wife Gail, he the owner of the New Orleans Saints. Should be a great time. Still a chance to get down there if you're watching here on this Saturday on K-Texas. The kickoff is at 7 o'clock. We'll have the pregame broadcast at 6:30 locally here on Mix 92.5 FM. And then ACU's next home game, a quick reminder, October 30th against Angelo State. That's 2 weeks from today. For ACU head coach Chris Thomsen and for Brandon Tripp, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching The Chris Thomsen Show. We'll see you next week.